Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. Today I'm playing a request from a friend of mine who really wanted to see POX on the channel. I played against a POX deck a little while back and they said, oh, that looks good, could you play that? So I've had a go at building my own little POX deck here, which is a deck that doesn't necessarily get a lot of love, but it's one that I remember from like the old extended days. We used to have like Deathcloud and that sort of POX style thing, and that was really fun. So what is this deck aiming to do? Well, this is like a control deck that wants to grind away your opponent's resources, but grind away basically all of them. So to do that, we have 4 Wastelands, but we also have a single Ghost Quarter, and we've got these Life from the Loams to try and recur that again and again and again and really get our opponent that way. And to facilitate this, we are running not POX, but Smallpox. So this is 2 mana, each player loses 1 life, discards a card, sacrifices a creature, and then sacrifices a land. So this strips away a whole bunch of your opponent's permanents in one fell swoop. It does hit us as well, but we are hoping to ignore that by having excess cards to pitch in our hand, like lands and Life from the Loams, things like that, or discard that we no longer need, or even a Nether Spirit, or any of these things. So we can pitch these to our Smallpoxes, so we kind of make it a little bit more one-sided, and then we can grind out our opponents in terms of winning the game with our 4 Urza Saga, our 1 Mishra's Factory, our 1 Nether Spirit, and then these 2 little gems. So we have Worm Harvest. Now, if you're not familiar with this card, I don't think this card is any good, to be perfectly honest, but I really like it, and I thought I'd give it a go, and if it's not good in POX, where is it going to be good? So we used to run this in like the Deathcloud decks back in the day. So this is 5 mana, create a 1/1 black and green worm creature token for each land card in your graveyard. Now, we're going to have quite a few land cards in our graveyard, so you should make a few dudes, and it has Retrace. So if you're unfamiliar with Retrace, it's you discard a land card as you cast this if you're casting it from your graveyard. So basically, every time we get a land in our hand, we can rebuy this Worm Harvest, and because we're a Life from the Loam deck, this is just going to make a sort of increasing number of tokens every time we make it to try and close out a game. So yeah, I thought I'd give it a go here. Probably not quite good enough for Legacy, but I like it, so we'll see if we can get it to go off one time. And we also have this singleton Vengeful Pharaoh, which I'll explain in a second. But what if you don't know this one, while it's in your graveyard, whenever combat damage is dealt to you or a planeswalker you control, this jumps out of the graveyard to the top of your library and destroys the creature that was attacking. So this is a way that we can keep putting this on top of our library and dredging, so our opponent can't really attack us without losing their creatures. So that's kind of the plan with this one. But the thing that's kind of hinging these things together is Entomb. So we're running 3 copies of Entomb. And we've got a few targets. So obviously Life from the Loam is our main engine. So we've effectively got 6 copies of Life from the Loam between Entomb and Life from the Loam. So that's relatively understandable. We have this 1 Nether Spirit that we can go and Entomb if we want a creature that's just going to keep coming back every turn. Now, the only other creature in our deck obviously is the Vengeful Pharaoh, which automatically jumps out the graveyard on its own when we're getting attacked. So in theory, the Nether Spirit should be able to jump out the graveyard. This could be a Bloodghast instead, but I think the Nether Spirit has the ability to block, so it's slightly better. So we're going to go with this one. And obviously we can Entomb for our Vengeful Pharaoh or our Worm Harvest. We also have a singleton Raven's Crime. So this is just black, target player discards a card, but it's got Retrace. So we get a load of lands back of the Life from the Loam, and then we just cast 3 discard spells on our opponent, and we can just make sure our opponent never has a hand if we can get that up and running. We've got a tiny little, as a Saga package between Nihil Spellbomb, Retrofitter Foundry, and Shadowspear. Normally I'm not a fan of Retrofitter Foundry, but our deck is relatively light on ways of winning the game, so this is one that can hopefully help us do that. And if we've got a load of mana just sitting around, we can spend it on this. So I think that's all right. Anything else to mention in the main deck? We've got some Hymn to Tourach and Thoughtseizes is just like good point and click discard. And we've got this Liliana of the Veil, which does quite a lot. So it lets us discard things that we don't want in our hand. So it could be excess lands, it could be Vengeful Pharaohs that we draw, it could be Nether Spirits, Worm Harvest, stuff like that, but also whilst draining our opponent's resources out, and it gives us a way of killing creatures repeatedly, potentially, and we can pop this ultimate and really put the hurt on our opponent. Mox Diamonds and Explorations is how we're trying to accelerate ourselves out a little bit. This is sort of the best combo of things you can have with Life from the Loam, in my opinion, so that's what we've gone for. Only 3 Exploration. We don't really want to open a hand with 2 Explorations, I don't think. And we can play around without them, okay. So we've only got 3 in there. And we needed to fit room for our silly Entomb package, so there we go. A few other things to note about our mana base. 2 Urborgs. We're probably going to need these quite heavily. We've got black pips here, we've got black here. Like most of our, we do have a lot of black mana sources, and we've got Mox Diamonds, but we might find ourselves needing more Urborgs. But I haven't played POX decks, or like Smallpox decks, for a very long time. So maybe my numbers are slightly out, but I did take a list that I saw online and tweak it and stuff to get to this. We have one Cabal Pit, which is another way of blowing up creatures. It can only -2 a creature, so it's not amazing, and it needs Threshold. But it's just something else that we can have there. We have 2 Boseiju, because it's going to be very important for us to blow up certain permanents. And between this and our Ghost Quarter and all that sort of stuff, we should be able to blow up everything going. We also have some Barren Moors, so we can get some cycling going on. So the Life from the Loam becomes more than just drawing 3 a turn. We can then power out twice a turn and really pull ahead. The one thing that you could say is missing from this deck that maybe you'd expect would be a Tabernacle, which I don't know if we're going to miss or not. Maybe we will, I'm not sure. But we have our own Worm Harvest, so we're not massively into trying to Tabernacle our opponent out. So that's why it's not in there. And again, this is a list I just took and tweaked to fit the Entomb package and some of the bits and pieces I wanted in it. So that's pretty much it for the main deck. We got a few interesting ones in the sideboard. So the less interesting ones is 3 Mindbreak Trap, 3 Liliana in the Void. Now, 4 would have been nice of these, but I don't think I could fit them in with all the other things I needed to include. So we've just got 3 of each for Storm, and for any graveyard-based decks, pretty self-explanatory. We have 2 Dark Blasts. So these are part of our Entomb package. I would have loved to have had one in the main deck. So the Worm Harvest probably should be a Dark Blast, or maybe the Vengeful Pharaoh should be a Dark Blast. But due to the creatures being quite chunky these days, thanks to the initiative, I'd rather have the Pharaoh main deck and the Dark Blast sideboard. But Combo Elves is quite popular at the moment, and Dark Blasts can pretty much just rinse through an Elves player. There was a game on my channel the other day where I just won a game against Elves purely because I had Dark Blast and I was killing 1 to 2 creatures every turn with my Dark Blasts. And it was pretty brutal, and we can Entomb it, so it's basically like tutoring for it, so we can do this, we can dredge, which also dredges us into things like Life from the Loam as well. So there's a lot of synergy with our deck, and it's very, very good in certain matchups. We have 1 Sun Edict just for a little bit more spot removal. This can hopefully deal with some Marit Lage tokens if necessary, but we're hoping that our Wastelands and Ghost Quarters can more or less get us there, but we'll see. We have 1 Ashiok. I've seen a lot of lists playing Ashiok from the POX community. I'm not 100% sure. Like, obviously, being able to exile your opponent's graveyard is good, and it mills ourselves, so it can kind of help facilitate things. I'm not sure how necessary this is, but I wanted to include one and see where I thought it would be good. Pithing Needle, this is another thing that I would have liked in the main, but we didn't really have the space, but ended up in the sideboard. Again, if you were playing a more streamlined list, you might end up with this in the main and some of these cuter things gone. We have 3 Assassin's Trophies just as a nice standard way of removing all sorts of things. It also goes very well with our Ghost Quarter because we can overload the amount of basics they find and then have no downside to using Ghost Quarters and Assassin's Trophies. Because if you're trying to Ghost Quarter your opponent out, the quicker you can let them run out of basics, the better. And we have Virtue's Ruin as just one of. This is obviously mainly there for the initiative matchup, which I imagine is probably not very good with this deck because it's going to be a little bit tricky for us to steal the initiative off our opponent. That's kind of what the Retrofitters is sort of doing. If we can make a 1-1, kill their guys and maybe get in and get the initiative, because the initiative will just tick down and kill us eventually. So destroying all white creatures is pretty useful. Obviously, Death and Taxes still exist too, so it's not just for one matchup. It's got a couple of utilities there. And yeah, this is a nice card to have when you're behind a little bit. It can kind of bring you back into the game. And if you're destroying all white creatures, then hopefully whatever you have left can finish them off like the Lily. So that's pretty much it for the deck. It should be a fun one. I've not played, like I said, I've not played a Smallpox deck for a long time, so I'm keen to see how this plays out. And if you know anything about me, you know that I love blowing up people's lands with Wastelands and Ghost Quarter. So this is rather in my wheelhouse, although I'm obviously not going to be an expert at it now. So let's just give it a go and see how we do. So before we jump into a league, let me just say likes, comments, subscribers. These are things that I would like. Subscribers especially. Once I hit 1,000, I get monetized, so it makes it a lot easier to play weirder decks like this. So that I don't really take the hit for the play points as much, because the money I can get off of like ad revenue will kind of offset that. And I can just keep making this content that I enjoy making, and I hope you enjoy too. All right, plug over. Let's jump into a Legacy League with Worm Harvest POX. I guess that's what we're calling it. We won the die roll, which is nice. We have the ability to go and get ourselves our Life from the Loam, which we can then... So we can get our Life from the Loam, then we can him to Tourach our opponent, and then we can Liliana our opponent. This seems like a nice curve of 1, 2, 3, and then we can follow it up with an Urza Saga to try and win the game. So this seems good to me. I'm going to click the keep button, and there we go. I think we probably start out on the Verdant Catacombs here, just to dodge things like Wasteland, and that'll do. Now, if our opponent plays something that requires us to pivot and get something else on our Entomb, we can still do that too. But most of the time, we're just going to be getting life from Loam. A basic island. Right, let's crack this. Now, our opponent could stifle this. They did not stifle that. Let's cast this Entomb at end of turn. I suspect if they have a counter spell, it will go on this Entomb. We're not actually that bothered about trying to resolve this Entomb. Sure, a daze. Like, this is just a nice way of having the life from Loam, but we're not like all in on it. So our opponent's going to think we're a different deck than what we actually are. So we saw the basic island. I'd rather keep my green source back, so I'm probably playing out the Urborg this turn because we don't want the Saga to start ticking just yet. Because what we want to do is him to Tourach our opponent and get some cards out of him. So this is going to get 2 for 1 either way. Sneak attack. Okay. That's what our opponent is up to. I see. We do have a choice of what we discard with our Liliana next turn. I think we probably want to be discarding the other Liliana. But we'll see if we draw something. A Smallpox is interesting to me. Our opponent only has 1 land. So if we Smallpox... Do we want a Smallpox or do we want a Liliana? Smallpox can play around another days. Or we can just play the Liliana and start going to town on our opponent's hand. We're definitely playing out this as a Saga. I think if we play out the Smallpox, our opponent's going to be quite far behind. Then next turn we're probably on the Urza Saga line instead of the Liliana. If we play out the Liliana, then we can go into Urza Saga next turn. This is a tricky one. I think we want Liliana. I think that just works out slightly better for us. Now, our opponent might be able to show and tell a creature in, but we've got that covered with Liliana and Smallpox. We want to keep back our green source because we'll need that to cast Loam eventually. So we'll throw away our excess Liliana. And we got a Grizzlebrand from our opponent. Okay, so what are we looking at from our opponent? So we've already taken an Ancient Tomb off our opponent. So hopefully hitting their land this turn will be better for us as well. A Ponder. This looks like the Ponder of somebody possibly looking for lands, which means our Smallpox is going to be quite good, one would imagine. Okay, Scalding Tarn, cracking it, Volcanic, and another Ponder, sure. So we have choices of what we do with our Urza Saga. Now obviously Smallpox and Urza Saga is a little bit of a nombo because we don't want to waste our mana making a creature that we then get rid of. So if we're going to Smallpox, we need to do it this turn. So I think it's going to hinge a lot on what we draw as to how we play this one out. They did not shuffle the library from the Ponder, so we're definitely looking to Smallpox this turn, I think, and try and disrupt our opponent. That's a pretty good one, truth be told. So I think we can play this one out. We cast the Entomb here, and we'll get this life from Loam in our graveyard, I think. There's nothing else. No, I think we need the life from Loam to just start working away. And then we are going to cast ourselves this Smallpox. So black, black. And I think we're probably sacrificing our basic swamp here. Okay, we got the concession. We've obviously taken enough of our opponent's resources there. They also know what's on top of their library, so the Ponder might be an issue for them. All right, so what does that mean in terms of what we want to be doing to our opponent here? Sudden Edict and Pithing Needle are both cards I like. They allow us to Pithing Needle the sneak attack, and Sudden Edict, a creature that gets put in with a show and tell. Worm Harvest feels a bit slow, and Vengeful Pharaoh, I don't think we're going to be killing any of their guys with Vengeful Pharaoh without just dying, so I don't think that's the thing we need to do. The Worm Harvest definitely feels slow here. We're probably just on the Disrupt Our Opponent plan. We might want these Assassin's Trophies because our opponent might be bringing in some way of hitting our graveyard. Retrofitter Foundry is kind of slow here. Shadowspear, this probably isn't a Shadowspear game. I doubt it's a Nihil Spellbomb game either. So we can cut one more thing if we want an Assassin's Trophy. I think we probably do want the trophy. And maybe we're looking at... maybe it's the Nether Spirit? I think it might be... So we need to be able to blow up our opponent's Blood Moon is another thing. So the Assassin's Trophy is hopefully going to do that for us. And I suspect that's going to be better than Nether Spirit in the long run. We could try and squeeze in an Ashiok here as just another way to like fuel our graveyard. But I think what we've got going on is suitable enough actually. Not actually a fan of this hand. We can't really cast that many of our spells here. We need quite a little bit of help. I think we can do better. We need to interact earlier than what we had available there. So Wasteland is good interaction. We don't actually have a green source just yet, but we can use a Saga to get a Mox Diamond. That's very slow though. I don't know if this is keepable actually. I think we might have to mulligan again. This is the best hand so far, by miles. Okay, so we'll keep this one. We don't need a second Liliana. And the Mox Diamond is going to be the thing that lets us get black. But I think we want to be able to Thoughtseize on turn 1. So that's going to take Mox Diamond, pitching Wasteland, and then that lets us Thoughtseize. Then we play the Barren Moor, then we him to Tourach our opponent. So it's the Liliana, I think, is the card that has to go here. Because we basically need to make sure that we don't die in the first 3 turns of the game. So we can worry about winning the game later. That's the POX philosophy. You don't have to win the game just yet. Okay, so let's see how we do. An exploration. Not actually that great for us. Let's cast this Mox Diamond. And we'll discard this Wasteland. Then we'll Thoughtseize our opponent. So we have green mana, so we can play underneath the Blood Moon a little bit here. Surge Extraction on our Wasteland. Sure. You're going to get him to Tourach next turn, most likely. And we didn't have a way of getting this Wasteland back, so our opponent's kind of just -1 to their hand, which isn't really what you want to do when the next 2 turns are Thoughtseize plus him to Tourach. Now, our opponent could have like a Daze to follow this up, but they're more likely to keep the Daze back for the him to Tourach, I would imagine. But then again, if we Thoughtseize, we can take the Daze and make the him to Tourach land that way. Let's see if they're going to let us have a look at their hand. They are going to let us have a look at their hand. So not a big fan of the Blood Moon. Even less of a fan of this Show and Tell though. So we're not going to be able to... We have to take the Show and Tell, I think, here. We can take the Emrakul instead, but then they just need to find another guy. This is the blue card, so it pitches to force. Well, we can't take the Blood Moon. We have to break up this combo. I think we take the Show and Tell because it's the blue card, so it pitches to force. And then we play out our little tap land. And then our opponent's going to cast a Blood Moon this turn. And then we're not really going to have the way to cast our him to Tourach. So Kraken, a Scalding Charm, City of Traitors that we know about, and then there's the Blood Moon. Sure. So we don't have green mana. Yeah, we do have green mana. We don't have green and black. So we're going to need a little bit of help here. So I think we play out the Exploration in case we find a Life from a Loam. Now we're just sort of in a bit of a draw-go step here. So our opponent's probably going to play this island, yep. If we find a land that doesn't tap for green or black, we probably keep it in our hand. That way we can pitch it. So this is very bad to play because it automatically dies under Blood Moon. But it gives us something to pitch to a Mox Diamond now. All right, let's keep going. Barren Moor. So we can cycle this. I think we cycle it now. Let's see what we find. Another Urza Saga. Not a very good one. Gonna be a slow and a weird game this, I think. Smallpox. We can't cast the Smallpox because we don't have black. We only have red-black. Our opponent is Brainstorm locked with any Brainstorms they find though, which is something. They only have 1 blue source, so they won't be able to hardcast a Force of Will unless the next... Okay. We have a spell we can cast. I'll take it. A Flusterstorm. So this is basically a Spell Pierce, so it's going to take us 2 mana to pay for this, which we can't do. I suspect this means our opponent is getting a little bit closer to being able to do something. So they shuffle their library off the ponder, so that's something. An Entomb. This is good. So we can Entomb for Life from the Loam and then start digging towards what we need. Yep, okay, I'm down with this. So we will cast this on our opponent's end step. I imagine they have a counter spell that's going on this, unless they've got another Surgical. So the other option we had there was getting Raven's Crime and hitting our opponent's hand over the course of a few turns, but I don't think that's as good as getting the Life from the Loam here. Okay, so we're not going to get those things. So we're back to just drawing regular cards. Sudden Edict. Okay, so we have a guy covered, so that's okay. Not perfect, obviously, but it's something. A Ghost Quarter. So we want to play this one out. It is only a mountain at this point, but it means if we draw another coloured source, we can hold up the Sudden Edict and do something else, perhaps. Blood Moon, though, doing some real work on the other side of the table there. A Bayou. Not what we need, I'm afraid. Just another mountain. Very weird game, this one. A Verdant Catacombs. It's a mountain. We'll play it out, though. So we're still waiting for the same thing we were waiting for before. Life from the Loam. This is a good one. We do have to go shields down in order to do this, though. A Force of Negation is pretty strong here because it exiles the Life from the Loam. So Sneak Attack would be very good against us because we can't cast our Sudden Edict right now. Another island. So this is hardcast Force of Will available for them. So we will draw our Life from the Loam. Let's pop our own graveyard out here. What do we find? A Boseiju. I will take that Boseiju. Now, the chances of us being able to actually get this Boseiju seem relatively low since our opponent can just counterspell this. But eventually we'll get there with Life from Loam as long as they don't have Force of Negation. Sure, a hard cast Force of Will. Alright, so we get to do the same thing next turn. Do you want to play this Barren Moor out? No, I think we might need that in case we need to cycle something. And once we get rid of this Blood Moon, we do get to activate all our lands and get some good stuff that way. But every time we do this and we go through the Song and Dance, we are putting our shields down in the face of a sneak attack. Like a Show and Tell, we can then untap and suddenly eat them, but a sneak attack can just get us. But we have to try and win the game, I think. If we sit here for long enough, they're a blue deck, so they're going to sculpt. So we just have to Life from Loam our way into this game. Oh, we found a basic forest. That's pretty big news. So this is green and probably this. Verdant Catacombs, Boseiju, forest. Is this one going to resolve? It did resolve. Okay, that's very good for us. So we play out our basic forest. We play out our Verdant Catacombs here. I think we don't want to do too much right now. We want to wait until our opponent's next turn. This way we can Boseiju this and hold up our thing here. So we've got 8 cards in hand. We'll discard one of our excess Urza Sagas. We're keeping the Smallpox just because they can remove creatures that enter play. So this is our opponent's turn to do something. We've got Sneak Attack covered if they've only got the Emrakul and Ancient Tomb. Sure. It's very unlikely they have Stifle for our Boseiju here. So I think we're in a good spot now. Our opponent does have 6 cards for us to whittle through, which is not nothing. Let's get rid of this. So this is going to be green, and then we'll pay red here. Opponent probably only has 1 more basic. No more basics. Interesting. We'll crack this. We'll get ourselves this swamp. Just in case our opponent has a second Blood Moon. We want to get all of our swamps out. And then I don't think we cycle now. I think we just hold the Bayou here. And then we'll dredge the Life from Loam. We've got all the tools we need in our hand right now anyway. So we can play out our... what are we going to play out first? I think we play out Urza Saga. And I think we are going to him our opponent. Black. Which looks like a Force of Will. Sure. I'll take that. And so we want to hold up the Sudden Edict, probably off the Mox Diamond. That's our most reliable source, I think. Let me play this one out. So we're looking at black, and 1. Then if our Life from Loam here resolves, which I imagine it should do, so we want to get Boseiju, an Urza Saga, and we have 1 more Bayou in the deck, so we'll get this Verdant Catacombs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And I think we play out this as our additional land. And then we will +1 this. We'll discard this. So I think one of these fetch lands of our opponents is already dead. Okay, so there's the Emrakul gone, so they're going to shuffle these things back into their library now. So we have the Barren Moor in case they try and get rid of our Life from the Loam, if we want to do that. We have the Boseiju, so we can start going to town on our opponent's lands now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Do they not have any sources to find here? Interesting. I'm kind of amazed at how little action our opponent has had. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Omniscience. Yeah, this is certainly a thing. They've got an Emrakul. They do have an Emrakul. 3 cards in hand, so we have to let them have the Emrakul. We can either blow up the Omniscience, or we can blow up the Emrakul. We're on 16. I think we're supposed to blow up the Omniscience here. We can afford to sack 6 permanents, but we can't cast a Smallpox if we do that. We can cast a Sudden Edict. This is green and 1. We can just sacrifice lands, that's not an issue. They don't have any lands to tutor for with this. Oh, they do. Interesting. So we're going to lose 6 permanents, but we can bin off like Urza Sagas and stuff. Not an issue. I'm going to go to 1. 6 is a lot of permanents, isn't it? So I think we're getting rid of 1. This is coming at us, is it? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then we go to 1. So I have another Omniscience we lose. Inferno Titan. Yeah, that does it. Okay, sure. Let's go to the next game. So Inferno Titan is an interesting one. Does it make us want to change anything we're doing here? I don't think so. I think everything here makes sense to me. We just run it back. Be on the play. Let's get that Thoughtseize in nice and early. We did mull to 5 that one. We could have started attacking our opponent's mana base earlier, but as we saw, they did have another island, so that wouldn't have worked out too well for us if we did do that. They took out all our Wastelands, so we couldn't strip them back that way. We had to use the Ghost Quarter, which the first few basically don't impact them because they go and get basics. What does this hand do? This is like turn 1 Life from the Loam, and then turn 2 Try and Wasteland them, Life from the Loam. Doesn't feel great. But maybe it's okay. We can Entomb for the Raven's Crime and start messing our opponent's hand that way. Or we can mulligan to try and find an actual hand disruption. Can only Wasteland our opponent once on turn 2. And if they have a basic, they can just ignore that. I think we have to mulligan to more hand disruption. That's more hand disruption, isn't it? Sure. The Urza Saga can go onto the Mox here. And then we're just going to... So we'll keep this. And I think we're probably binning off this and saying done with that. I think turn 1, go and get ourselves a basic swamp. And we Thoughtseize our opponent. And then we're like... We have a win condition in Urza Saga as well, which is nice. Alright, this hand has got some stuff going on. I don't really care too much about the Blood Moon just yet. It's unlikely they cast a Blood Moon immediately. I think we take the Force of Will maybe and then try and get them with the hymns. I think that's the best plan here. So I imagine this turn of our opponent is going to be Island Ponder. Now if they spike a Lotus Petal or something, then sure they can get us. I'm not sure if we've seen a Lotus Petal in the previous games though. Could be originating. So there's the island. And here's the Ponder. No Ponder. So this makes me think my opponent has drawn Flusterstorm. Interesting. Let's play this one out. So they might just be saving a Brainstorm to fix their hand in the face of a discard spell. Yeah, okay. That's what they're doing. So goes the Brainstorm, and some amount of these are going away. Like, we will need to find some action. Like, I was hoping to draw another land so that we could pitch something else and have the Urza Saga as our action. But obviously, the POX deck, not big on action. It's just all about the disruption. Okay, so we've got the Blood Moon, and there's no Lotus Petal there. Okay. So we have a basic, and we have a Mox Diamond, so the Blood Moon doesn't look great now, so I can see why you'd leave that in your hand as something that can get hit. Ancient Tomb. They're just going to Raw Dog a Show and Tell on us. They are. So we probably lose this game. We get free exploration. A Grizzlebrand. Okay. We did what we could. That Brainstorm found them the Show and Tell and the creature to put in with the Show and Tell. So, yeah, pretty good turn 1 Brainstorm there. It's going to be very hard for us to resolve anything at this point. Now, we do have, like, Sudden Edict that can kill this. A Wasteland. Let's play our Wasteland, I guess. Attack our opponent. Now, we're incentivized to keep hold of our Wasteland in case we draw a Liliana here. Whether or not we can actually resolve a Liliana remains to be seen. So our opponent's going to have 14 cards, so they can happily discard some cards at random here. We don't really have a choice of what we can play. Okay, so they're Force of Willing our hymns Tourach, by the looks of it. Yeah, they're going to have to discard down anyway. I have to imagine that they can finish us off with some amount of fast mana into like Omniscience, Emrakul, or Sneak Attack. It's probably Omniscience, Show and Tell here. Yep, and then they cast the Emrakul and we're dead. Sure, so it was a long game, and they just brainstormed into stuff that dodged all of our discard there. Sometimes it happens, and that's kind of the problem with discard over counter spells. But there we are. So that was quite a fun game for the most part. We had that weird long game, and we got to do our thing in game 1 as well. All right, on to round 2. Okay, we're on the play for this one. We've got a pretty gross Wasteland, Life from the Loam lot going on here, so I think we can keep this. We have both of our basics in case that's a thing that we need. Our opponent has mulliganed to 6 cards so far. Play our Verdant Catacombs, and say go. Uh-oh. Lion's Eye Diamond. Mox Opal. Okay, we might be just dead here. Human Spirit Guide, Gamble. Okay. Echo Beyond. There's no point us using this in Tomb now, because everything's going to get shuffled in anyway. Alright, this hand is not terrible. We can play Liliana if we get a turn. Right. What is our opponent playing? Right, we saw an Entomb. So they're on some sort of like epic gamble type thing. I'm not sure I've seen many variants with the Agadine in it. Like putting under the Mox. It's all good information. Although we're just boarding in our 4 Mindbreak Traps and dealing with it, I suppose. But let's see. Human Spirit Guide. Sure. Rite of Flame, 2 black floating. And then a Mox Opal. So our opponent's got 1 card in hand. So this could be Ad Nauseam. It could be a not quite lethal Tendrils. Could be Burning Wish for 3. Okay, so just doing a little mini Tendrils here. Okay. I say mini, it was pretty big still. So, I think this turn we just want to get our Liliana online. So this is Mox Diamond. And we'll pitch this Verdant Catacombs. Then we'll play our Mishra's Factory. And we'll go to 1. We can get a Bayou here because our opponent's not going to mess with our lands. This is black, black, 1. Get Liliana in the Veil. We're going to tick it up, get rid of our Nether Spirit. This comes back anyway. And we want to tick this up in case we can pop the ultimate on it. Might be a little bit challenging for our opponent to win here. But they have a lot of life to work with. So I think we are playing out a Wasteland here. We Wasteland our opponent's land. We +1. Each player discards a card. We'll get rid of the Raven's Crime. Like every land is basically a Raven's Crime anyway. Then we will activate this. We'll go to attacks. It's back to our opponent. Sure, a Lotus Petal. What are we going to draw here? Smallpox. So this is a card that I cannot cast. So we will discard this. And then we'll activate this. Go to attacks. It's not a quick clock. But we do get to blow up a lot of our opponent's permanents quite soon if we want to. And we'll play out this Wasteland. We're getting close to being able to Worm Harvest if we draw it. Oh no, is this Simian Spirit Guide? Jessica's Will. Okay. What did they find? So when can these be played? This turn. Okay. So they're going to play this one out. I imagine they play out the Aghanim's Awakening here. They probably don't play out the Dark Ritual. It puts it back into their deck if they want to, but I don't think it's worth it for them. A Verdant Catacombs. Well, we can't use that anyway, so... I'm not going to pop this now. We're going to give our opponent one chance to draw thing off of the Lion's Eye Diamond. Maybe that's a mistake. I guess we're about to find out. Like, it has to be... I guess there's actually a few... It can be the Wishes, or it can be the... Echo. But we're not immediately dead if they do Echo. But we get to pop our Liliana next turn. And if we draw a land, we can Raven's Crime the last card out of their hand as well. Entomb. Okay. So they're putting an Echo in now. So we're spinning a wheel. Sure. So this shuffles back in the Tendrils. Very long game 1 versus Storm here for a POX deck, I would imagine. Okay, so we've got Bauble, an LED, so they're likely to be able to spin again. They don't need a lot to kill us. Like any Tendrils, they don't need a Storm count to kill us with the Tendrils. A Gamble. Are they cracking it? No, there's no point cracking the AD. Okay, they might have just gambled for a Tendrils to finish us off. No? Okay, so they're floating the mana this time so they can Burning Wish. Here we go again. We have plenty of discard, but I think the time for discard has probably been and gone. Bauble. So that if they have a Tendrils in hand, we're dead. So I don't think they would have cast that Bauble if they had the Tendrils. Because we're on 1 life. Any Tendrils kills us. And they have black, and 3 in their pool. Okay, there's one of the blacks. Thoughtseizing us. Interesting. What do you take here? Him or Retrofitters? Obviously, it's not the Thoughtseize because we're on 1 life, so that doesn't actually do anything. Lotus Petal. Unless that was just to check and they have the kill here. Burning Wish into Grape Shot, maybe. And passing the turn. Interesting. I will cycle this end of turn. So we'll draw for turn. Okay, they're cracking these baubles in our upkeep so that they get the cards on their turn. Smart. Another Liliana. Okay, so I think we start off with him to Tourach on our opponent. It's usually a pretty safe one. Okay, so cracking in the bauble. I think we have to pop this on our opponent. Sure. So I think we want to keep the Chrome Mox that does something and the Mox Opal separate. We want to keep both their black sources separate. So they can have red-black here or they can have black-black. So that's quite an easy one to choose from, I think. It only requires them to have 1 more artifact. I think that's fine. It's been a long time since I've assembled a Liliana pile. We should have put the Chrome Mox in with the other things. I don't know why I've done that like that. We want to keep this away from the Metalcraft. That's a mistake. Because this pile has Metalcraft already if they draw a Mox. So they're going to keep this pile. We can't wasteland them to punish either. So we have to play out our Urborg if we want to play the Liliana this turn. This is black. This. We'll keep this one. Took this one up. We'll get rid of our Thoughtseize because we're on 1 life. We get rid of our opponent's last card. Go back to attacking with our very slow clock. I was not expecting to play this many turns of Magic when I saw their opening hand, but there we go. So they got a lot of cards to work with now. Interesting they kept this pile rather than the one with the Mox. They both had 2 mana. Maybe they were expecting us to have a Wasteland. I guess this is a guaranteed 2 mana. The other one is they need an artifact for 2 mana, but if they don't have any artifacts, they probably can't win anyway. An Aghanim. Is this tapped or untapped? Untapped. Okay, that's bad for us. That means our opponent might be going off this turn. Have they got just a Tendrils in hand? 3, 4. Empty the Warrens. 4 goblins. There might be more goblins than I can deal with. A Mox Diamond. Does that change anything here? So this makes them sacrifice a goblin. This blocks a goblin. This blocks a goblin. And then we die. Let's try and see some more cards from our opponent's hand. See if we get any more information. Charbelcher. Okay, that's good information to have got there. We'll play out this Mox. Get rid of this Verdant Catacombs that we can't use. And let's see if our opponent makes a mistake. I suspect they won't. All at me. Yeah, that's fine. We'll concede. Sure. Okay. So we do have sideboard cards for this matchup, which is a good thing. So we've got these 3 Mindbreak Traps and these 3 Land on the Voids. We can also board this in for the Charbelcher. This is not going to do anything. This is not going to do anything. The Nether Spirit is quite slow, but we do need to eventually win the game, is the thing. Nihil Spellbomb definitely has text. Retrofitters is quite slow. Is Shadowspear going to be good enough? Maybe we can gain enough life to get going. Not sure that's realistic though. So maybe we're looking at boarding out like these. And we still need to get rid of another 3 cards. The Liliana looks good. The Hymn to Tourach obviously very good. The Entomb is fine here. Gets our engine up and running. But our engine isn't as potent in this matchup. So maybe we can trim on these a little bit. Maybe just trimming on them, all of them. Is this good enough? Well, I think the question is, can we do better? The Ashiok does have text here as well, thinking about it. Is that going to be better than a Nether Spirit? Maybe it will be. The explorations seem less good if we've got less Entombs in the deck. So we're closer to like the mono black POXy list with this. But alright, what does this hand do? We have Urza Saga, which doesn't really do anything. We have a Wasteland that probably won't do anything. I think we just need to mulligan. We need some hand disruption. Or we need 2 Mindbreak Traps. Okay, we can keep this. And we're getting rid of one of these cards. I think we're probably getting rid of... I think it has to be the Mox Diamond here. And then we can lead out with a Forest Nihil Spellbomb. Okay, so they've got a Lane of Anticipation. Pretty cool. So they can combo off on our upkeep if they want to. We do have these Mindbreak Traps though. Okay, let's petal 3 cards in hand. Gamble, yeah. You're not going to like this. Get out of here. Okay, they're just keeping up to the Mindbreak Trap. Cool. Run it back, hope for the best. We have 6 turn zero things we can do in our deck. This is one of them. Now the problem with this hand is that it doesn't really do anything with the rest of our hand here. But I think we can keep this. They haven't seen the leyline. They're more likely to play around Mindbreak Trap and leyline. We only need 1 black source, of which there's a decent number in our deck, and we can start hemming our opponent. So if we draw like Mox Diamond on turn 1, then we just get to go to town. So this shuts off our opponent's Echo. Feels like our opponent often needs the Echo to do anything. So this should hopefully do some amount of work. I don't know if they're going to have... Because they saw the Mindbreak Trap and not the leyline, they might not have anything for this leyline. So they might just have to try and win the old-fashioned way without drawing 7 cards all the time. Well, they're playing something out. Mox Opal, Lotus Petal, Lion's Eye Diamond, Rite of Flame. They're 1 mana off of empty. Infernal Tutor. Are they going to crack their LED and just make some... goblins? I think so. So at the top I did mention that we don't have Tabernacle in our deck. This is a situation where having it in our deck would be a nice thing to draw because they're probably going to make some goblins. Oh, okay. What? Why didn't they just make their goblins? Like how many do they make there? They make 12 goblins? That's a 3-turn clock. Like we're not going to beat that. Weird. Alright, well I'll take the win anyway. Let's move on to the next round. We're on the draw. We have Thoughtseize into him, into Liliana, discarding Vengeful Pharaoh with an Urza Saga plan. We're obviously quite cold to Wasteland, but I think that curve is pretty good, so I'm going to keep it. A Volcanic Island. So my initial instinct is Delver. That's the most common Volcanic Island deck. But leaning on the Ponder is unlikely for... Well, it's not unlikely, but it's less likely for Delver because they would rather have a threat. So it could be Sneak and Show again, but we'll find out. Let's see what happens with our Thoughtseize. So being cold to Wasteland here feels real bad. Well, let's see what we have. Okay, so we've got days that we can't pay for. Sure. So if our opponent untaps and plays a Wasteland, I'm not going to feel very happy about that. But if they don't play a Wasteland, that'd be great. Oh, they're thinking in their main phase. This feels like they're getting Wastelanded. I'm feeling my bones. They didn't play the Wasteland. Okay, so I thought about that for a while. I do suspect our opponent has a Wasteland in play. That Wasteland will probably get pointed our Urza Saga rather than our Urborg, which is actually great for us. Again, this might not be a Delver deck with Wastelands, but so far it's relatively consistent with Delver. But you do sometimes see Dazers in the Sneak and Show decks, but a lot less than you used to once upon a time. Okay, so I'll just Bayou. So we are going to play this as a Saga out and try and bait out a Wasteland, I think. Because I think we win that game on that front if we're doing that. Let's see if this Hymn to Tourach any good. Now, our opponent could have a Daze here. They do not. So just... Oh, okay, they discarded Uro and Tropical Island. So they're like... They could be Hot Bants. They could be the... Well, they're probably not Hot Bant with Daze, right? So they're more likely to be the Stifle Gnaw, the Dress Down Stifle Gnaw Uro deck. That's what I'm putting our opponent on, because that one does have Dazes in sometimes, whereas Hot Bant's not going to be playing Dazes, because it wants to be making land drops every turn if it can. We have a choice of whether or not to Urza Saga. Okay, so there's the Wasteland that we thought our opponent had. So goodbye Urza Saga. Oh, they're taking out the Urborg. Sure. I guess the Urborg stops us activating the Urza Saga next turn. What are our choices here? I think we'll play out a Ghost Quarter. That way, if they Wasteland our Urza Saga, we can at least Ghost Quarter it for a mana source that taps for colours. Not great, obviously. But it basically just turns our Ghost Quarter into a Prismatic Vista at that point. Okay, didn't have another Wasteland. So we can get the Nihil Spellbomb and clear the Euro this turn off of the Urza Saga. Do I want to Ghost Quarter my Urza Saga? Okay, we want to cast a Liliana this turn. Things have changed. Sure. So we can cast our Urza Saga. Okay, we drew the Mox Diamond. That's pretty good. So if we Ghost Quarter our Urza Saga here and get a black source, that seems fine to me. I'd rather have a black source than this Urza Saga. This land is going away anyway. We've got the tutor from it. It's a bit like crop rotationing. And get a basic swamp. Then we'll go tutoring. So we'll still get the Nihil Spellbomb here. And then we'll try this Mox Diamond. If this gets countered, we can still make the Bayou. So you can play around days. Black. Yes, we can play this. Cast this out with this, and this. So this is black. Now this has to resolve. Force of Will pretty bad for us. Okay. Each player discards a card. Goodbye, Vengeful Pharaoh. Get in my graveyard. I think we'll just take out our opponent's graveyard now. We don't have the black mana for that, but there's 2 Uros that we're getting there, so I'll take that to the bank with me. Whoa. Oh, no. Oh, my God. Oh, for Christ's sake. I pressed the wrong button and yielded instead of using my Liliana. Oh, my God. What a misclick. Yikes. So they're going to kill our Liliana, which will put a Vengeful Pharaoh on top of my library. Oh, what a disaster. What a disaster. Now they can stifle this trigger and really ruin us here. They did not. Okay. Jesus. Oh, I haven't misclicked that badly in Modo for a little while, so that's nice. So we're drawing this card that we didn't want. We'll play this out and we'll say go, and then we'll make a Urza Saga token. Now we did plus our Lily actually, didn't we? Ignore me. All right. Ponder. So our opponent is a dress down deck, which is something to note. So then we get a tutor of this. It's either Retrofitter Foundry or the Shadowspear. I think we just want the Retrofitter Foundry here. Go to attacks. Look at Entomb for life from the Loam and then start grinding away our opponent's resources. Yeah, so the other turn, like, I don't know why it's like +1 to get the Vengeful Pharaoh out of our hand instead of killing their Phyrexian Dreadnought, which is such a weird play. I was kind of thinking, oh, I want to do that and get that out of my hand, and then do the other and kill that guy with the minus, and I just had a bit of a moment there. All right, so what is our opponent going to cast? Expressive Iteration, maybe? Dress Down. Ooh, Daze, that's pretty good. Can't pay. All right, I think we're in trouble now. We could be having a Liliana in play, so this is on me. What can we do with this? Not a lot of anything. I guess we can play out this exploration. Yeah, I've completely punted this game by not minusing the Liliana then. I was too eager to get this stupid cute Pharaoh out of my hand instead of actually doing a correct play. So that's a bit embarrassing. I deserve to lose this game, so there we go. Right, we're just going to take this 12 because taking 11 or taking 12 isn't really much of a difference here, is it? Alright, so let's make a little rubbishy 1-1. It's a lot worse than a Phyrexian Dreadnought. That's for sure. What are we looking at here? Come on, deck. Hook us up. A Mox Diamond. It's not the one. Yeah, so we punted this game and we lost. Alright, what is going to be good here? I quite like Ashiok, weirdly. It deals with our opponent's graveyard whilst also fueling us. So it's like not much of a cost on it. Sudden Edict can kill these big scary boys. Assassin's Trophies can kill big scary boys. Worm Harvest, probably too cute here. But is it better than Nether Spirit? Now Spellbomb looks good. I'm not convinced we want this Retrofitters. I know we did shoot it for there, but that's just because the Shadowspear was not doing anything because our opponent clearly had a dress down. The discard stuff is going to be fine. The Smallpox is going to be great. Liliana, great, especially if I click my abilities properly. That'd be lovely. Vengeful Pharaoh, their guys are too big for Vengeful Pharaoh to do much. And then we're looking at cutting some number of these things. The Cabal Pit is not going to kill any of their guys. So I think we can board that one out. And then maybe we're looking at boarding out these two. Again, we're very shy of win conditions when we're doing this. Maybe we do want the Worm Harvest. We want to do it one time at least, right? So maybe we're like shaving an Entomb. Because we're not trying to put Vengeful Pharaoh into our bin. And our opponent's probably going to have less... probably going to have Graveyard Hate. It's going to be less susceptible to the things we're doing there. Like, I think the Worm Harvest is a better win condition than Nether Spirit. I could be wrong. Like, this is the fun card we're playing. So let's lean into it and try and win with the Worm Harvest, right? What does this hand do? Kills their guy uncounterably. Thoughtseizes them. Has it as a Saga. Is immune to Wasteland to begin with. Has our own Wasteland. Yeah, this hand seems great. He says as he's already playing his first turn. Sure. Let's Thoughtseize our opponent. What are you working with? Lightning Bolt, Dress Down, Force of Will. I think Dress Down is the scariest thing here. We'll take the Dress Down. And then we'll pass. So the Dress Down not only messes our Urza Saga that we have in our hand, but it also gives the ability to make the 12/12. So I'd rather avoid that if possible. Misty Rainforest. Well, they're cracking it. Did they find a Ponder on their first turn? They did find a Ponder. So Wasteland is not going to be great against our opponent looking at the amount of lands they've got in hand right now. We're going to have to grind through a few lands first. So that's a plan for later. We know they have a Wasteland here. So I think what we want to do is play this one out. Try and bait the Wasteland. We can fire off just a random Life from a Loam, a random Raven's Crime here, which I don't hate. Let's do that. It's a 1-for-1, right? They discarded the other Misty Rainforest. Sure. So, okay. So, what we want our opponent to do is Wasteland our Urza Saga, and then we're going to Life from the Loam it back. Now, if they've drawn a blue card for the Force of Will, and they want to Force of Will our Life from the Loam, that's A-okay with me. There's the Wasteland. Goodbye Urza Saga. Yep. This is playing out exactly as we drew it up. Now I just need to concentrate and not make horrible mistakes like I did in the last game, and then we'll be all good. Opponent's got some cards in hand, so they could stifle us here. That's the one thing we have to worry about. How worried about stifle am I? I think I might actually just Wasteland our opponent here. I would rather get the Wasteland stifled than our Verdant Catacombs. Scalding Town that we knew about. Sure. So we're going to fire off this Entomb at end of turn, I think. Try and bait our opponent into countering it. Got another Ponder here. They do have another Ponder. So this is a non-wastelandable land, so they are learning. I think we might even Entomb for the Worm Harvest, you know. Because we're going to get there eventually, right? Let's see if you Force of Will this. I did not Force of Will that. Interesting. So we already have the Life from Loam in hand. I think it is just this. This is the best thing in our graveyard out of everything that's left here. We could have put like a land we wanted in. So we could have put the Ghost Quarter in. There's another option we had. Okay, we've drawn another Life from Loam. Sure. We'll go and get ourselves a basic forest. Cast Life from Loam, targeting the 3 lands in our graveyard. Maybe we are supposed to get a different land, like the Ghost Quarter. But I think just having the Wasteland is going to be fine, because I'm not sure how many bases our opponent plays. Is this Force of Willable for you? They could have a Force of Negation, but fortunately we do have the second Life from Loam in case that happens. Could be a Surgical on Wasteland or Saga. Surgical Saga is super bad because we have so few win conditions. Thankfully we got the Worm Harvest day right. Force of Will on the Life from Loam. Pitching another Force of Will. Excellent. Sure. Now if they Surgical our Life from Loam here and get the other one out of our hand, that's going to be bad. Because we have Life from Loam in hand, I'm not going to draw the Life from Loam here. Cast this, targeting the same 3 lands. Again, we are slightly exposed to days here, but our opponents shouldn't really have days in for game 2 on the draw. They could do though. But again, if it's Life from Loam, we get it back. Okay, they are conceding because we've assembled the Wasteland lock. Alright, so we should have won this match, but we punted really hard in the first game. Cool. Do we want our Leylines of the Void for our opponent's Uro? I don't think so. I think we just have ways of disrupting it, and we got a little bit of Graveyard Hate. No Bajuka Bog is another thing in this list that's interesting to me. Maybe we can chart that one up to them seeing the Worm Harvest, not the Wasteland lock. Alright, let's submit here. The one thing Cabal Pit can kill in their deck is Brazen Borrower. But, again, I think we are fine killing Brazen Borrower in this deck. What does this hand do? It deals with Uro. It plays a pretty serviceable Saga game. And it deals with the First Resurrection Dreadnought. I think we keep this one. It's a bit of an odd one. It doesn't really have an engine, but Ashiok kind of can find us one. Like, if we mill ourselves 4 for a few times, the chances of us hitting into the Life from the Loam are relatively high. We can make a turn 1 Ashiok if we feel that inclined. But I think we're probably best off just making the Saga. So we can Saga, Mox Diamond, hold up Sudden Edict. A Ponder from our opponent, sure. Yeah, so we can... we'll see what we draw. Ideally, if we can draw another land to pitch to the other Mox Diamond, that'd be pretty good. Because then we can make turn 1 Ashiok, and then turn 2 start grinding out Saga tokens. Again, our opponent might have days now because they're on the play, so that's something to worry about. But let's just see what we draw and go from there. A Bayou. Okay, a Bayou is a pretty good one. So what are we playing out here? We play out the Urza Saga, number 1. We play out Mox Diamond. Force of Negation pitching Stifle on our Mox Diamond. Interesting. Right, let's try another one then. How do you like them apples? This is a real question of what we pitch here. I think it should be the Urza Saga. So we can definitely cast our spells if we start getting Wastelanded away and things. Stifle, Dreadnought. So the reason they might want to stop us accelerating is so that we can't Liliana their Dreadnought straight away. That's the impression that I got, that they had a thing that they wanted to get going that way. Could be wrong. And they did pitch a Stifle, so maybe that's less likely. We'll see. What have you got for us? Tropical Island. And nothing. Sure. We're going to keep the Bayou in hand, I think. Thoughtseize. I think I'm just going to play the Saga game this turn, then next turn play the Bayou Thoughtseize off after Sagaing. It does mean that we're not really getting to deal with the dress down if that's what our opponent has. Now, if they got the dress down, then fair enough, I suppose. Feels like we're getting dressed down here. Like they're fetching now to fetch around Pithing Needle. Okay, so we're just going to get the Nihil Spellbomb here. So we can either Thoughtseize our opponent or we can Wasteland them. So what I would like to do here is attack first and see if we get any reaction from our opponent. No reaction there, interesting. So this could be an end of turn dress down instead. Let me Thoughtseize rather than Wasteland here. So yeah, they might take the hit and then they can end of turn dress down, then untap into Dreadnought. So they take the 4, but they clean up both of our tokens and get themselves a threat. That's why you wouldn't necessarily play that there. Also, when we're Thoughtseize here, we can get a peek to see what's going on, hopefully. Just a brainstorm to hide. Could be. Just a daze. We will not pay. Okay. So now I suspect our opponent is going to hit us with a dress down. Yeah, there we go. As expected. So we would like to get the card off of this Spellbomb rather than just the effect. Now, our opponent doesn't have an arrow in the graveyard, so we have no real need to do that. And I don't think this deck plays Murktide. Could be wrong, but if it does, then we can suddenly nuke them. Interesting they're not just slamming a Dreadnought here. This makes me think that if they do have the Dreadnought, they must have a Dreadnought and a land in hand already, so even if they miss off the iteration, they're okay. Unless they're getting really greedy here. Oh wait, we know they've got land because they bounced one with the days, didn't they? Of course they did. Okay, yeah, so they're going to play this land, and then they're going to get the Dreadnought. There we go. Sure. So we don't actually care about this because we have a removal spell in hand. Which back to us. A Liliana. This would be a better removal spell, but I think we have to do the one that definitely hits them. So we go black and 1. Goodbye, Friction Dreadnought. Then we play out the Wasteland, and we hit their Volcanic, I believe, because this is the one that lets them Expressive Iteration. And now we have Nihil Spellbomb that can draw us a card if necessary. And if they don't play a threat next turn, then we can play out our Ashiok and start milling ourselves. Because the text of this is target player mills 4 cards, then exile each opponent's. So you target yourself, mill 4, then your opponent's graveyard gets wiped. If our opponent plays land Uro this turn, it gives us quite a good opportunity to Spellbomb for value. But our opponent does have 5 cards in hand. Circle Extraction targeting the Wasteland. So I can exile our own graveyard. Oh, on the Saga. So I can exile our own graveyard if I want to. Fizzle this. I'd quite like to draw more of these. I think I will hit ourselves just because we have this Ashiok in hand. So this fizzles their extraction. And then we can play out an Ashiok next turn. I would have liked to have drawn a land rather than a Mox Diamond, but beggars can't always be choosers. 3 cards left in our opponent's hand. Him to Tourach. Would I rather do that than Uro than Ashiok? Yes, I would. So we can do this around a daze here. What do we hit? Force of Will, Wasteland. Those are pretty good ones to hit. Okay. So now I feel pretty comfortable playing out the Ashiok and starting to gain some value. The other option is to play out the Liliana and start ticking up. Life from the Loam. That certainly changes things, doesn't it? Yeah, we'll cast this Liliana. Do they have a daze? Or Force of Will blue card? We get to plus this before they get priority so that they can't Lightning Bolt it. If they still have Lightning Bolts in, which they shouldn't, but they might do. Another Force of Will. Okay, so they probably didn't have a blue card in hand is what I have to imagine. So we're suspecting our opponent's got maybe a Dreadnought or something like that in hand. Okay, it was a Lightning Bolt. Sure. So our opponent is Hellbent, and we're about to play a second Planeswalker. Pretty happy about this. Would be better if I'd have won that earlier game where I punted, but I can just get really annoyed at myself instead, and that's fine. Smallpox. This does blow up our opponent's land if we want it to. I think we plus this first, just to make sure we resolve the thing we're trying to resolve. We don't really have any lands in the graveyard, so we'd like to put... Okay, sure. So we're going to put this Life from Loam in our graveyard. We keep this because it is a removal spell. I'll play this out, so black, black, black. We will -1, mill ourselves for 4. Let's pop our graveyard out at this point. Okay, we got a Worm Harvest. Maybe we can Worm Harvest our opponent out of the game. So kept in bolts just for Liliana. I guess that makes some amount of sense, but maybe they just don't have a better answer. We don't want to minus this because of Lightning Bolt. We just want to dredge targeting our little lands here. So green, black. We can play our basic. And then next turn we can start with the Worm Harvest. Put some win conditions into play. So I think we probably will Ashiok ourselves next turn, just to try and make the Worm Harvest better. Dress down. Okay, so this is just digging for cards. That's fine. Hopefully Life from the Loam can hit like a nice big chunk of lands. That'd be good. 3 lands off the top. Make many worms. 2 lands. That's close enough, isn't it? They can stifle this, but we don't really care if they do. Bayou, I suppose. Do we need to mill ourselves? I don't think we need to. So we'll cast with Retrace. I'll pitch this. Worm Harvest. Yeah. 4 1/1s. This is what we wanted to do today. So we're on the way. Remember in Standard I used to play like a 200 card deck that would traumatize yourself to get the Worm Harvest in the graveyard, and then you just make loads and loads of guys. Once upon a time. The Wild West days. Alright. Minsk and Boo. This is a pretty interesting one. What are they going to do with it? Is the question. Sure. They're probably going to kill our Ashiok here. That's fine. We'll just let that happen, then we can swing at the Boo. Are they on blocks? Oh, a bit risky being on the old blocks here. Thoughtseize. Our opponent has 1 card in hand. I think we're casting Life from the Loam. That's a given. So green, black. So I think we play one of these out. Crack this. Guess there's a swamp. Now, we can't actually kill our opponent's Minsk and Boo this turn, which is a little bit annoying. We can put it to 1 though, which is fine. So I think we are casting Smallpox here. Discard a card, choose a creature, sacrifice a land. I think it should be the Bayou actually. It's a bit of a mistake, I think, that the way I tapped. So I'd rather keep my basics in. We go to attacks. What our opponent discard a Stifle. Attack all creatures at Minsk and Boo, please. Because this can now die to Minsk and Boo, I'm going to mill ourselves. Sure, so we have a Boseiju now if we want it. Okay, so we can definitely kill the Minsk and Boo next turn. And we can't use it to draw cards because it's on 1. Are we going to Worm Harvest someone in the year of 2023? Sure. So this presumably just comes in our Ashiok. Yeah, okay. Be my guest. That's us. Yes, I would like to dredge Life from the Loam. Plenty of juicy targets there. Step 1, I think, is tap Minsk and Boo, tap Minsk and Boo. And hold one of these back on blocks with our other guys. Is there Raven's Crime in there yet? No, there isn't. Oakley dokley. So we can Thoughtseize our opponent first if we want to. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Because we can't really Life from the Loam anyway. So have we got another Bayou to fetch up? I don't think we have another thing that this can fetch actually. It's a little bit awkward. Let me cast this. Discard this. Can we have 9 1/1s, please? Oh yeah. Not every day you get to Worm Harvest, people. Alright. So we can put all of these under the bus to kill the Boo. Yeah, alright. I'll take that. Worm Harvest, getting it done. In the year of 2023. We could have won that in 2 games. We basically won 3 games, but punted one of them. So, alright. Excellent. Let's go on to the next round. So, what does this hand do? This hand has a Life from the Loam Wasteland lock, but it's a little bit slow. I think we probably need some sort of acceleration on the draw. I'm going to mulligan this. Yeah, this is the Life from the Loam that we wanted, so I guess we keep this. And one of these has got to go back. A little bit tricky. I think it might be the Liliana here. Reason being, this is going to be able to attack our opponent on both axes we want to attack them on. And Life from the Loam Exploration is a quite good combo to have running. Obviously, we don't have multiple lands, but if we're dredging Life from the Loam, we probably will. So I think we can probably do with a Liliana. I'm probably going to regret that decision, but we'll see. A basic mountain from our opponent. I can feel it in my bones. My opponent's playing Welder. So I think we play out this Bayou. It's Mox Diamond. Let's go. Okay. So we've got the Nihil Spellbomb if our opponent is on Painter Welder deck. Say, like, Engineer something. Rift Bolt. Didn't see that one coming. Our opponent did not make a second land drop, which means he's probably going to have a bad time. Have our graveyard popped out here. So we can... Do we just want to Smallpox our opponent? Do we want to try and get a little bit of value? I think if we play out this and Life from the Loam targeting these two with this and this. And then we can play out our Exploration. Then we play out our Urborg. Then we play out our Nihil Spellbomb. So we're going to get Nether Spirit into play next turn, which is a threat. Makes Smallpox a little bit worse, but Smallpox always keeps coming back anyway. Nether Spirit keeps coming back anyway. I don't know if we get to race this. If our opponent misses a land drop again, then we're definitely in the Smallpox trend. We kind of want our opponent to like play a guy and then we Smallpox it. This matchup's probably going to be quite hard. They've got nothing but basics and they kind of don't really care about the lot we try and assemble into them. Now, things like him to Tourach here are going to be very good, so we're probably supposed to draw regular cards rather than Life from Loaming here. Like that Liliana would be pretty good about now. I think we have to draw regular cards. Smallpox, you said. Sure. I didn't come here to not cast Smallpox, right? If our opponent doesn't get to play any spells, that's good. Like our opponent's hand is full of burn spells at this point. So here goes nothing, I suppose. So this is Urborg and Mox Diamond for a Smallpox. Price of progress, you said. 2, 4, 6 damages. Yep, that's a lot. So we've actually made a mistake here, haven't we? If we wanted to cast the other Smallpox, we needed to tap our mana differently. I assume that's not true. We can... No, yeah, we need to tap our mana differently to see that one. Alright. And then we have to sacrifice a land here. So we don't want to sacrifice... We want to be able to tap our Mishra's Factory. We can't actually Smallpox here. We can draw a card with our Nihil Spellbomb. Do we want to dredge Life from the Loam here? I think we do actually. Okay, so we have a Raven's Crime. Excellent. So you have a game plan now. Yes, we will get this guy back. Draw a regular card. So I think we are casting Life from the Loam on Urborg. Casting Life from the Loam targeting Boseiju, Urborg and Forest. And then we're playing this. And then I think we want to Smallpox again here. Just to clear our opponent's land. That does put us into a multiple of 3, which is an issue. This Boseiju is unlikely to do anything. And then next turn we Raven's Crime our opponent's hand away, which means we're probably getting rid of the Bayou here, so we can keep the Mishra's Factory to attack if we have leftover mana. So the other option we can do is we want to try and stabilise and then get an Urza Saga into play. So we're just going to be Life from the Loaming and trying to get Urza Saga and get the Shadowspear into play. Now, the only problem with that is if we mill over the Shadowspear, then we're in trouble. If our opponent's got Fire Blast, they're probably what's going here. I can play a land, though. And then I can cast Raven's Crime, targeting our opponent. All right. We're making progress here. But 2 Lightning Bolts kills us. So if they just go Land Bolt, then we're probably likely to die. This is always going to be a difficult matchup, I think, because our life total... All right. So we're getting somewhere. Let's draw this Life from the Loam. Let's cast this Life from the Loam, targeting the only lands we can. This is green and black. He's back. Our opponent's got 3 cards in hand, so we can only Raven's Crime them twice. Here. So I think we go Raven's Crime, pitching this Boseiju is not going to do anything. Then we play this Forest, it's basically a Bayou, right? Then we Raven's Crime them again, pitching this. Alright, one more turn. So our opponent brick on lands again. They did. Okay, so we get to take our opponent's whole hand away now. So let's cast this, targeting Urza Saga, Bayou, and Boseiju is fine. Okay, these 2. Alright, our opponent did actually have a Mountain Bolt, so that game was certainly not over. But we managed to get that one. So, burn. A removal spell is going to help. Worm Harvest, probably too slow. Vengeful Pharaoh, on the other hand, is okay. Are these Assassin's Trophies going to be good? We're going to need to get rid of Eidolons, I suspect. So probably going to want these in. They also do blow up lands, if that's the thing we need to do. Smallpox is good here. I don't think we want Thoughtseizes, so those can go. The Hymn's very good though. And this makes 60, so I guess that was just a really well-built deck that mapped out nicely or something. We do want the Shadowspear. The Retrofitters is okay. It can make chump blockers. The Nihil Spellbomb is a redraw. Is that better than a Worm Harvest? Probably. Better than Ashok? Also probably. Better than Dark Blast? Is it better than Dark Blast? I don't know. I think so. Yeah, let's submit. We need ways of winning the game. So what does this hand do? Yeah, this does some stuff. So they suspended Rift Bolt. We play this one out. We're going to get ourselves a basic because we're playing around Price of Progress now. And we have the Urborg anyway. So I think we play out this. And then we're probably playing out this into Retrofitters. So you can at least make some blockers or something. Alright, so our plan is to make Liliana next turn and start draining our opponent's hand that way. But if we need to, we will Smallpox away a creature this turn. Oh, they not play a land? They did have a land. Okay, didn't want to have the same game as last time. Eidolon, okay, so we are definitely Smallpoxing now. So this is... Wait, if we... No, we have to Smallpox before we Life from the Loam, really, don't we? Because otherwise you're going to take more damage. So I think we just go black, black, Smallpox. So we get rid of this Life from the Loam. We can dredge up next turn. And we're going to sacrifice our Wasteland because our opponent's not really going to have targets for it. And that's the end of that chapter. Next turn we dredge Life from the Loam. And we maybe cast Life from the Loam. I suspect that might be a little slow. Flame Rift, 4 damage. Ouchies. Sure. Let's dredge this. Let's keep our graveyard popped out. And then we are casting this on these bad lands. So this can go and get us a basic. This can Wasteland us off of... this goes and gets us a swamp. Yeah, so this can get us... this can Wasteland us to make Price of Progress deal less damage to us. So we've got to survive another turn. We can make a Retrofitter's Foundry if we need to. Is making a 1-1 here worth taking damage from Price of Progress? That is the question. I don't think it is. Nope, I don't think we do. Yeah, we'll judge this. Oh, we've gone to... We've skipped there to our main phase, sure. So this for 1, 2, 3 means we can still Wasteland ourselves to keep ourselves healthy in the face of a Liliana, in the face of a Price of Progress. We don't have a Worm Harvest on our deck, so we don't need this Wasteland, so we can pitch it in case we need to double discard with Liliana on a turn, or discard and Edict. The Shadowspear being in our graveyard is not great. This is also not great for us. Okay. Here comes the Liliana. +1 the Liliana. Discard this Wasteland like we mentioned. And we hold up this Wasteland so that we can dodge Price of Progress. Otherwise it will deal us 4 damage. Lava Spike. 1. Okay. We need 1 more to kill us. Seems likely. We don't have life from the Loam to dredge. This doesn't really help us out. So we get these ones back. So we'll use these 2 lands to cast it. So we'll play a Mishra's Factory. And we'll also play a Wasteland so that we can, again, get around Price of Progress if the time comes. And we'll discard this Boseiju, I think. Boseiju does kill Eidolon, actually. So we'll just do it this way. Does our opponent draw a burn spell in their deck full of burn spells? Our opponent may not have drawn a burn spell here. So this turn we can make a servo because we can keep our Wastelands up. I suspect we are dead. We have a lot of draws we have to fade here. Our opponent's life total is quite insurmountable. I guess, like, are they going to respond with the burn spell? Price of Progress, sure. So you will hit this and hit this. Okay, we faded a turn there, I guess. Then what do we need here? We need the factory back. We need a Wasteland to go with the factory. We need another this Ghost Quarter. We can start ripping our opponent's lands apart. That's a very long process though. So we want this to attack. We have 2 land drops available. We want this to attack, and we want this to dodge Price of Progress. And I basically have to get incredibly lucky to win this game. Flame Rift, sure. All right, we're going on to game 3. On the play, I like our chances a little bit better. I'd very much like to have these Hymn to Tourach. I think the Worm Harvest is actually good here, weirdly. I think it's just a threat that does stuff. So it's probably better than the Nihil Spellbomb here, which is just a cantrip. Like, we need to close the game, and this gives us a way of closing out the game. So I think we're going to keep that. I don't really want to be playing Thoughtseizes or anything. Sure, this seems fine. We're on the play. This does give us the ability to Raven's Crime our opponent pretty sharpish. So I think we have to keep it. So I think we're going Mox Diamond. I think this deals us damage, but we might need a black source. Things go wrong. I don't think we can play for things going wrong like that. Okay, let's Life from the Loam targeting this. Step 1. We've got the Expiration, we've got the Entomb. So we can Raven's Crime our opponent's hand away. We've got a removal spell for like Goblin Guides or whatever. Rift Bolt, sure. Our opponent seems to be on a burn heavier build, which makes sense given how good the initiative is, to be honest. Smallpox and Worm Harvest, I see. So this needs to go back into our graveyard, which means we're playing the Cabal Pit out and taking a damage from it. Cast this. Well, I guess we don't have to take a damage from it. We're either taking 1 damage or we're taking multiple damage from the Price of Progress. So I guess it's kind of a bit of a choice there. But we're going to pop this off for the Entomb in a second anyway. Flame Rift. Yep, it's a big damage. Unfortunately, we're going to have to put ourselves to a multiple of 3 here. Tough game this. What was I going to get? It was the Raven's Crime, wasn't it? Where is that? Raven's Crime. An Urborg. That's one of the cards we wanted to find. Okay. This is green, colourless, 4. Just the 1 land is a little bit annoying, truth be told. We can play out this Urborg here. We can Raven's Crime once. That's not a lot though, is it? Truth be told. We don't really have the better option unless we're trying to sudden edict our opponent, which is more mana efficient than taking 1 card out of our opponent's hand right now. We need more lands to hit off of that. I think we hold up the sudden edict here. Our opponent is a lovely human being, which is what you love to see. So we can start making Worm Harvest tokens next turn. But I don't think that races what our opponent's doing. Lava Spike? Sure. 3 more and we're dead. They've got 4 cards in hand. Idol on the Great Revel? Sure. We have to take 2 to kill this. We don't actually have to take damage from our Cabal Pit though because of our Urborg. So that's something. Not that that's necessarily going to matter outside of Flame Rift. Need to really hit some lands off of this. Okay, those are good lands to hit as well. So I think we are in these 2 back. So we only have 1 green source right now. It's for, I guess we tap this one for black. So that's the least flexible of all of our lands. So you play out our Urza Saga, and then we Raven's Crime our opponent twice. We're now in a situation where we don't want to dredge the life from the Loam, in case we hit the Shadowspear that we're going to need to pull back into the game. Oh, I've used the Wasteland when I was supposed to use the Cabal Pit. Oh no. Oh, that's going to cost us the game. I can feel it now. Oh no. Mountain. We could take 1 dredge here. But if it hits our thing, it's so bad for us. I think we have to just not draw off of that. Okay, a Wasteland was exactly what I wanted to draw here. So we will Raven's Crime our opponent again. I suspect they probably have a response to this. We could have made Worm Harvest, but we want to make the biggest creature possible to then get the Shadowspear. Fire Blast is super mean. So basically the game hinges on our opponent's next draw. If their next draw is a 3 damage burn spell, then we lose the game. Always a mountain. Okay, we might win this one. This has been a really good game against burn, which isn't something people necessarily say very often. So make this guy. We untap. Do we want to... We don't want to dredge this now for the same reason we haven't been dredging it for the last few turns. Because we don't want to dredge a Shadowspear. So this will make a token here. Then we go and get Shadowspear. Then we have to play out this. Then we go black, and this goes for black. We equip this to this guy. We attack. This will put us up to 8, and we can take 2, 4 off of thingy. Alright, so one of the nicest people I've ever played against online, and he was playing burn, so respect to that man. Alright, yeah, we managed to win that one. We didn't dredge to make sure that we still had our line in there. I thought that was quite a good line there. And the Entomb for Smallpox was great. Not Smallpox, for Raven's Crime. Saved us probably the game there. And we just had to, basically, we had to get lucky for 1 turn. And the turn we drew a land was also quite lucky. Although they did Fire Blast us in response anyway, so it didn't make that much of a difference. But we had to have our opponent miss 1 draw. And we got there because of it. So that was a really good game, actually. And there's lots of tiny little plays in that game that made a difference, I think. We did punt a little bit by not leaving our Wasteland untapped. We didn't get punished for it, but that was potentially a fatal mistake. All right, I think we are 3-1 actually going into the final round, so 4-1 perhaps. Let's see if we can do it. All right, we're on the draw. This hand needed an Urborg to be playable. Doesn't have that, so we're gonna have to mulligan. Yikes! This hand does not have enough mana sources. Now we are liable to draw mana sources. Half of our remaining deck is mana sources. I don't think we can keep this though. Now this is a hand I can get behind. I've got to work out quite how we do this. We already have the life from Loam, so we probably don't need the Entomb. So we can probably get rid of the Entomb. The Smallpox is pretty good. We probably don't need 2 Sagas, right? So we're probably just going Mox Diamond, Catacombs, life from Loam, back both the lands. That seems fine. Now we can definitely come unstuck with various things our opponents can do. But this game plan is pretty decent. Once upon a time. Okay. So this could be elves. It could be they call it Naya. What's it called? Dungeon deck. Seasoned Dungeoneer. Yeah, okay, so it looks like that was one. This sort of seems to be the current flavour of the initiative builds at the moment. So we thought initiative might be a difficult matchup going in. Ooh, would I rather cast a Hymn to Tourach on my opponent? I think I probably would. I do like Hymn to Tourach. So we cast this. And because our opponent doesn't mess with our mana base, we can happily keep the Life from Loam for next turn. Play this one out. So this can go and get Bayou because, again, our opponent doesn't mess with our mana base. Unless that's some brand new innovation I'm not aware of. Let's just try and cheese our opponent and slow them down. If we can take out their initiative guys or some lands, Elite Spellbinder and a Stores to Plowshares. So I'm pretty sure our opponent's hand includes an Ancient Tomb and the Seasoned Dungeoneer. Feel it in my very bones. Cavern of Souls. Okay. That's not the one, is it? Oh, so we have the option here of Smallpoxing. Or we can Life from the Loam. I think I want to Life from the Loam these two cards back. And then we'll play our Urza Saga and get that ticking. And then we can Smallpox. So we could Smallpox to shut our opponent off of the ability to cast Seasoned Dungeoneer easily this turn. But, okay. So they're going to cast the Seasoned Dungeoneer. We have the answer for the Seasoned Dungeoneer in hand. There we go. They got there. Sure. Now, we're going to have to be playing up against the initiative here, which is going to be difficult. And they're also going to get a land off of this, because why not, I guess? I'm not particularly a fan of this. And we're not playing a deck that's very good against either, so. Are we dredging? Tricky to know if we're dredging here. If we draw a Liliana, that's super good. I think this turn we don't want to dredge, but maybe next turn we do. Thoughtseize. Okay, that's fine. So we have to cast our Smallpox this turn, and we probably want to Thoughtseize as well. We probably want to Thoughtseize first in case they have a land in hand. Let's Thoughtseize. Okay, it's 2 lands in hand, of course it is. So then I think we are just casting the Smallpox here. So this is black. Black, we can get rid of our basic swamp. The hitting our opponent's mana is not really going to make a difference here, because they've got a load of mana in hand. But it does get their Seasoned Dungeoneer off the table. Now, the problem is the initiative is a little bit too high on the power curve, in my opinion, because now they're going to be able to scry instead. So they're going to be able to scry for a new threat. So, not great. Our deck struggles to take the initiative a little bit here. So if they don't make a threat this turn, we can make a creature with our Urza Saga. Maybe we can get through. 1 top, 1 bottom. So they found a threat that they can cast. There's a city. Is it another Seasoned Dungeoneer? Or is it the White Plume? Sure. So this didn't advance them into another room. Yikes. Yeah, so we're basically dead here. What point is there in dredging here? There's no point dredging this turn, I don't think. In case we hit Liliana. Okay, we definitely didn't need to dredge. So we may as well be making a guy here. Shadowspear gives us a lifelinking guy. Retrofitters gives us a guy who can keep blocking the White Plume, but I don't know if that's going to work really. If we're rebuying, I just don't know how we can possibly win this game, which is a real issue. Dear. I guess the Retrofitters gives us something to do and make our guys bigger, but we're probably on the getting the life from the Loam back, I think, next turn, because we can't cast it Liliana, so there's no reason to draw it. But we're just going to die to Throne of the Dead 3 next turn. Oh, 1 creature should not give you this much value, in my opinion. It's a lot. Okay, so are we dredging this? Or are we drawing a card? Because we already have this in hand. No, we draw a card. Okay, so we have the Liliana for next turn. Let's get these back. We'll fight the good fight, but I'm pretty sure we're dead here. So we can play out another Urza Saga here. We want to try and make some more tokens. That gives us the most options next turn. So we can make a token next turn. That gives us 2 4/4s, so we can double block a guy. We probably could have blocked and traded our token off last turn. Maybe we're supposed to do that. But then our next token will be weaker as well. So it's kind of an awkward one. If we can make big enough tokens and then put a lifelinking thing on it, we'll be fine. But obviously, yeah. So they get Seasoned Dungeoneer, which is basically unbeatable in creature matchups. Which is kind of what we're doing now. They've got fodder for our Liliana. I don't know how we can win this game. Is there any point continuing to play this game is the next question. I think if we were on the play this game, we might have been able to squeak it. But I don't think so now. Just trying to think, what can we possibly do? We can't dredge life from the Loam. We need like a removal spell. Archon of Amir, okay. So they got a hexproof guy. No, we're just dead. Oh, yeah. I just... Deck's too good. Okay, so removal for the big guy. For the guys. Virtue's Ruin and Sudden Edict. So we've got a bunch more removal spells. Vengeful Pharaoh seems alright here. Nether Spirit is something we need because we need to take back the initiative. We can't just kill their things and hope that that's good enough. So we need to have these sorts of things. So we need 3 more cards to cut here. The Cabal Pit can kill some of their guys. The Boseiju can mess with our opponent's stuff a little bit. The Ghost Quarter is fine too. The Thoughtseize on the play is good, on the draw not so much. I don't think the Raven's Crime is where we want to be, and we're not going to be like stripping all of our opponent's resources that way. Like, they're going to get stuff out of their hand at some stage. The Hymn to Tourach is good just because it's a 2-for-1 sometimes before they can play like a critical man, since we can jam it on turn 1 as well. Maybe cutting like a Barren Moor. I don't think we have enough time to be doing loads of cycle shenanigans. We need 1 more slot to fit these in. Like the Worm Harvest, probably the weakest one, but it does... This will stop us from losing the initiative if we can take it back, is the question. Oh, yikes. This game is hard. Are we looking at maybe cutting one of our Entombs? Is that right? We'll try it. Like, I suspect this matchup is bad because we can kill all their guys all we like, but the initiative will just solo us anyway because that's kind of what the thing does. So, I don't think we can keep this because what's going to happen is we're going to Smallpox and then we've got nothing. We need to have some way of staying in the game. Okay, now this is a much better hand for us. We have the double Wasteland, we have Boseiju. We can keep this, and we're probably bidding off the Mox Diamond here because we've got the expiration anyway. So we don't have the black mana for this just yet, but we can go and get a Mox Diamond with this later. So we get to play an Urza Saga game from turn 2. We get to start making constructs. And we also get to Wasteland and make a construct on turn 2. Like, that's got to be good enough some of the time. Now, if they make a turn on White Plume, we lose because that's the best turn on play pretty much in Legacy at the moment. Say, City of Traitors, Lotus Petal, Archon of Emeria. That's kind of annoying because it means we can't get our land into play untapped unless we draw a basic here. We did not draw a basic. That's really annoying. So we don't get to make a token now because this is going to come in tapped. This is also going to come in tapped. We can make this though. So when we make our next guy, at least it's going to be bigger. We can strip out 2 of our opponent's lands. They haven't made one of their scary lands yet, the initiative ones. Feels like this turn is the White Plume turn. And they may lose their City of Traitor, but they replace it immediately with the Plains because of the initiative is... Oh, okay. So they're going to take the cards we can't actually cast out of our hand. Like, the mana cost isn't the issue. The mana value isn't the issue. It's the specific cost that's the problem. Okay, we are not dead yet. Our opponent's hand doesn't look great. Let's see what we can draw. A Mox Diamond. So that's not actually a very good one right now. So we will create a token here. And we get to tutor for something. Do we want to put a Mox Diamond in our graveyard? Yes. Because we don't want to draw it. And we can't actually equip this yet. So we say go. If we draw a land next turn, we can play the Mox Diamond, pump our construct, and then we have the superior... Obviously, our opponent gets another turn still. And also the Mox Diamond lets us play the Assassin's Trophy, which can hopefully hit some of our opponent's things. If our opponent's just got nothing here, then we're in an okay spot. But our opponent having nothing here is weird. Maybe I just sandbang it for second main phase. Yeah, okay, there we go. So if they play an initiative guy, another Archon, okay. Again, that's fine. Like, just white stompy stuff is fine. It's just the stupid initiative that really does us. So I think we're probably supposed to play out this Mox Diamond. We can't play the Assassin's Trophy this turn, but that's fine. So we want to equip this to this guy. So probably playing with the Mox Diamond and the Boseiju here. And then we are attacking. And then we are wastelanding. If our opponent doesn't play any more things, that's good for us. If we draw a land, we can Assassin's Trophy. We're just trying to keep our opponent off of playing the initiative. Now they can keep back some guys here and mess with us, and that will certainly be a problem. If they keep back the 2 Archons, I can only trade for 1 of them. This doesn't work the way they want it to, this race. I'll tell you that for nothing. Obviously, if they got more things like a plow or something, then sure, then we're just going to lose. Hymn to Tourach that we cannot cast. Again, we don't have the mana to Assassin's Trophy because this costs 2 more, if I remember rightly. 2 more, yeah. So we're just on the attack plan. So we're taking 3, 4, 5. So we're taking 7 a turn. Okay, so they've got a plow here. So, yeah. Our opponent's pretty bad looking hand seems good enough. But I think that's partly due to our hand not being great. We can draw Virtue's Ruin and just crush our opponent. But we only got 1 draw step to do that. We might be able to buy another draw step with some of the other removal spells in our deck. Or just a land. Alright, what have we got here? Another Archon of Emeria. Sure, our lands are definitely not coming into play untapped. This is a basic. Life from the Loam. So we can life from the Loam these things back, but then we die. So we have to concede the game. And that's the end of the league. So let's have a little chat about the deck. So we lost to the initiative deck, and I said right at the start that initiative would be a problem. I think initiative is actually just a problem in Legacy, personally. I think the mechanic is too strong on I think the white creatures are too... I think the other initiative creatures are fine. I think the mechanic is a bit too strong, but most of the creatures that have initiative aren't very good creatures. But White Plume Adventurer and Seasoned Engineer are really strong creatures that also have this mechanic that single-handedly can win you the game. So I think they are a little bit of a problem. But for this deck specifically, we really struggle to take the initiative back. We have Mishra's Factory, we have Nether Spirit, and we have Urza Saga tokens. But those are very slow compared to what our opponents are doing. So I don't know if we can realistically beat that with this deck. I know Bosch and Roll was playing a build that had initiative. I think it was Bosch and Roll. He was playing a build that had initiative creatures in it himself in the sideboard so that he could beat the initiative by killing their guys and stealing it back because it was the easiest way, which is usually a sign that something's gone wrong in Legacy. It's like we were playing Jitteys just to blow up your opponent's Jitteys back in the day sort of thing. Usually means that something's not gone quite to plan in terms of the meta. Anyway, back to the deck. So we beat the Burn player in what was a really good game. We beat the Dreadnought deck. Took a little bit of work to beat that deck, and we made it much harder for ourselves by punting one of our games. But I felt that matchup felt pretty solid, and we beat the... Did we beat the Charbelcher deck? Yeah, we did. Our opponent scooped at a weird time with the Charbelcher deck, so there was that. And what else beat us? I can't remember now. Oh well. So my thoughts on the deck. A Tabernacle would have been useful to have, but we don't have any way of fishing it out. So some of these builds play crop rotation. Our tutor package is Entomb rather than crop rotation. So if you're on a crop rotation deck, I think you definitely want the Tabernacles. Maybe you could try and squeeze one in, or at least put one in the sideboard. But again, the sideboard is incredibly tight for space. So how do you feel that? We got a win with Worm Harvest, which is what I wanted to do, and we did. And in that particular matchup, it was pretty good. It was just, it made 9 tokens of one cast, which is pretty gross, to be honest. I think the removal we have in the main deck is fine, but sometimes casting Smallpox can really blow back on you, which is the nature of Smallpox, really. It's such a powerful, like, disruptive element because it's also balanced in terms of hitting both players, and it's not like balance where it's not really going to be a symmetrical effect, to be honest. Because Smallpox is... Like, we have stuff we can discard to Smallpox, but we're still going to be losing land, so it's still going to drop us down the curve a little bit, and sometimes that can hinder us. It can mess with our ability to cast, like, pip-intensive cards, perhaps. It can also... like, if we've got a hand where we don't actually have anything we want to discard, it can be a little bit of an issue. So I think it's an interesting one. I will say that the Nether Spirit that we had here didn't really come up. It didn't really feel like it was doing anything. I think Bloodghast would have been better in that slot and done a similar thing. And you can get into a situation against the initiative where they get below 10 life due to their own ancient tombs, as well as things like Smallpox we might be casting. So the Bloodghast having haste might be able to just come in and steal the initiative. So that's something that might be worth thinking about. I think also Bloodghast is like one of my favourite creatures. I'm a little bit biased, but I think Bloodghast would be better than Nether Spirit, because we're making land drops all the time. Nether Spirit obviously doesn't need you to do that, but I think and obviously Nether Spirit can block, which is the other one. But it was never really much of an issue having it, because the boards were usually kind of clear and we were just sort of smallpoxing things away. The Urza Saga plan was fine, but one of the things I've been noticing, so before the initiative was a deck, the Urza Saga plan was just like a really good thing you could be doing in Legacy. But now, quite often, it's too slow because the format's now so much faster because you've got these turn 1 white plumes and no amount of Urza Saga. So like normally like an Urza Saga where you start making tokens on turn 2, unless your 8 cast isn't that good anymore, whereas before you could like ride your way through a lot of games. But if you're against initiative, you're just going to lose doing that because your creatures will be far smaller. That's not to say that we should be playing Urza Saga. I think it's a very powerful card that we should be playing in here, for sure. Yeah, the Vengeful Pharaoh was okay. I didn't have any problems with that. It made sense. I think it was probably better than the Nether Spirit at the end of the day. The Nether Spirit really didn't pull its weight. But that's fine. I haven't played a deck like this since Extended with the old Deathcloud, so I'm a little bit rusty. Maybe more Mishra's Factories might be slightly better than Urza Sagas, so that we can play just lands around Blood Moon, but also these can just attack into the initiative. So Mishra's Factory is much better at taking the initiative once you clear the board than an Urza Saga is, because obviously you're sacking your own guys to Smallpox. So I'm not sure that Saga works as well with Smallpox as I would have liked, but Urza Saga is a win condition that you can get back with life from the Loam, and so there is that. I think I've said enough about the main deck. I really, really like the Entomb package. We never got to do the Dark Blast thing, so we didn't play against elves or anything, but that would have been really sick. Okay, sideboard thoughts. Yeah, I think all the things here make sense. Ashok was pretty good in like that slower matchup. It was just like another way of pulling apart a deck that is like graveyard deck that you don't necessarily want the ley line, but there is a bit of overlap between these cards. Like Ashok is sort of for these like grindier Uro decks, whereas the ley line is for the things where you have to have it in play. But I think that might also include Delver potentially. So maybe the Ashok is just for decks that aren't around as much, like Hot Bant. And that's probably, obviously, the Dreadnought deck as well. But, like, it's not going to be coming up that much. Maybe we only need one Dark Blast because we're playing the Entomb package. I just really wanted to smash on spells for some reason. I think Virtue's Ruin is good. And what I did think might be quite useful is having white ley lines. So when I was playing that burn matchup, I was thinking, when you keep clearing the board, if you can keep your opponent at bay, then if you're not getting hit in the face, then you're going to do quite well. Obviously, that's not really an issue because Burn's not a massively popular deck. However, decks like Storm, having the white ley line gives you just another tool for them on turn 0 that they're going to struggle to beat, as well as against the initiative. Now, this sounds a little bit counterintuitive, but maybe something like I'm just trying to work out ways that you can actually beat the initiative. So that ley line would stop you getting hit by the trap, which is the thing that they just keep running through and getting you. So if you can keep clearing their creatures, then you'll be doing okay. But the problem with that is they're still getting creatures, and you have to make sure that you get the answers. So I don't think that that's a thing that we can realistically have in here. But I think more people need to be thinking about white ley line just in general as a card right now. With the increase of combo decks at the moment, I think white ley line is coming back into a place where it's better. Yeah, maybe more removal, I guess, would help against the initiative decks, but it's just a bit awkward, really, isn't it? Like, we'd have had a better shout in that game if we'd have been able to make 2 Urza Saga tokens, but the Archon just stopped us from doing that. If you're trying to beat initiative, you're not playing this deck anyway, but this deck is really fun. I enjoy playing it. This is some of the most fun I've had for a little while, actually. I really enjoyed Ravens criming people and worm harvesting people. It was like being back in the day, really. So yeah, this deck seems good. I'd be interested to see some like weirder and more wonderful Poxy builds. I'm also curious, like people are playing mono black Pox using things like Crucible, and for me, I don't know how you can play Pox without Life from Alone, but maybe I'll try one of those decks at some point just to see how it works out. Because if you can play mono black Pox, then you can probably play black white Pox. And I think playing black white Pox might give you some really useful tools. But again, I'm gonna have to play the black Pox before I do anything. But I hope you enjoyed this Pox content. It's not a deck you see very often, and we got our money back and got our little pity chest. So that's a win. I've certainly got worse records with what people consider better decks. So I think the little brave Pox deck deserves a little bit of love today. And I think we are done with this league now. So if you enjoyed my content and you're still here, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think of my content. Should I be doing longer debriefs at the end, longer deck techs at the start, or do you want them smaller? Is there any decks you want to see me play? That sort of thing. I'm open to suggestions. The worst I can say is no, so why not hit me up and let me know. And subscribers, that's really important to me right now. And if you know anyone who likes legacy content, whether you're in like any like Discord or Facebook groups, or if you're into Reddit, I don't really do Reddit, so if people can post my content there, that really helps me out. That's something you can do if you want to support my content, and it doesn't cost you anything to do, just like a couple of 1 or 2 minutes to cut and paste some links somewhere, and I'd really appreciate it. All right, I think we are done, so thank you very much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this throwback to Worm Harvest Ravenscrime POX. All right, take care and goodbye.